We are recording with Brad Pickering, and we were just talking that you've started writing on Substack. Where did that even come from? And then I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. But this whole writing thing, where did this come from?
I've always felt like I should write, or it's kind of always been there in the background. Huh. And I actually started writing about 10 years ago. I did a blog for a little while, but
because your posts on Substack are not short. Like, you're writing beautiful pieces. No, you really are.
Yeah.
About your crazy mountain biking adventures and monetary policy and investing. These aren't little posts you're writing. So you're dedicating time here.
Yeah. And like I say, 10 years ago, I started writing, and but I was doing it probably for the wrong reasons. I started writing because I thought, hey, this would be good for my business. It'd be good for marketing. I should, here's what I think people would want to hear, and that's what I'm going to write. I did that for a bit, hated it, didn't get much out of that.
Yeah.
Stopped doing it.
Here's what people want to hear. Like, throw open my mouth.
Yeah. And then exactly. Then, fast forward to about 4 or 5 months ago, and it was back on my heart that, hey, I should do this. And, but that had been a narrative going on in my head for quite a while. So I was like, you know what, I just need a sign. If this is something I should really do, I really need kind of a sign here. And,
what was the sign?
So, I was sitting on a plane. I was flying home from Texas, and I was finishing up, reading a book. And at the end of the book, sometimes an author will put a chapter of a next book, right? And so I finished the book, and there's the, hey, read a chapter of this author's next book. So I thought, no, I have nothing else to do, so I'm going to read the chapter. And I read that chapter, and it's a story about a guy who meets a woman on a beach, and he says to her, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "I was waiting for you." And he goes, well, doesn't know the woman. He's like, "What do you mean waiting for me?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm waiting for you. I have something for you." And she hands him a notebook, and he says, "So what's this?" He looks in, and it's just all blank pages. And she says, "It's for you. It's for you to write." And he's like, and he says, "What? Write about what?" And she says, "Just to write about you, to write your story." So I was like, oh my goodness, right? Like, this is, a crazy affirmation and a crazy sign. So I was like, okay, I think it's clear. I think I need to do this. And I'm going to do it from the perspective of, I'm just going to write about whatever I want to write about. I'm not doing this because I hope it promotes my business, or I hope to achieve some outcome or something. It's just,
maybe that's why it's coming across so great.
Probably, or maybe, I mean, that it's just genuine. It's just, this is what I've been thinking about. And so therefore this is what I'm writing about. And I think, and if there's no other benefit, then, so I have twin 17-year-old sons. And if there's no other benefit, then maybe one day, my boys will end up reading it, and that I've captured these things. I mean, that alone is to me would be a great outcome. So I'm not doing it to achieve anything, or I'm really just doing it because I felt called to do it, and I'm just putting it out.
How often are you publishing these things?
Once a week. So, and my commitment is I'm going to do 52 weeks, and then I'm 20 weeks in. And then at the end of 52 weeks, I'm going to sort of reevaluate and see, what.
Yeah, I wonder what your criteria would be, whether you keep going with it or not.
Right.
Because if it's serving you in some way just to express yourself.
Yeah. I think, I got a text yesterday. So from an ex-client of mine, this woman, she's a senior executive in the mining industry, and she sent me a text, and it just said something like, "Thank you so much for your post this week. It meant so much to me. It's like you're speaking right to me. It was exactly what I needed to hear." Awesome. And she's like, I'm working through some stuff, and I needed to get kind of restarted. And
Brad, how great was that?
No, exactly. So it's that alone, that text, that'll fuel me for another 10 weeks like that. So,
what's your process? Are you doing it on a certain day of the week? Do you break it up over a couple of days? Are you listening to music? Do you drink coffee beforehand? The reason I ask is because, sometimes Nick and I joke, and I look back, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we've written like 6-7 books each, just on the amount of emails and newsletters to Rockstar Inner Circle members, and just all the stuff we've put out. And sometimes, if I'm not in the mood, but I need to get something done, I'll listen to music, because music will change my energy. And I've also been able to, I think, notice that the type of music I listen to will actually influence the style of writing. Like if I'm listening to some really aggressive, like old rock, it will like come out in the writing. Like my writing will be a bit more punchy and aggressive. If I'm listening to something a little more chill, my writing style will be more chill. So if I intentionally want to write something that I think might have a chance of being impactful, I will put on some more aggressive music because I think it comes out in my writing while I'm listening to that, which I know sounds weird, but just an observation I've made over the last few years. And then I'm usually having coffee in the morning before I write and that kind of thing. Do you have any process, or right now is it just sit down and go?
I think I would say the process is, I don't really have a well-defined process, but, actually you gave me this advice. It was like, hey, start thinking about during the week, and kind of like, hey, that's something that I probably want to write about, and then keep processing that.
Yeah. Let it gestate a little bit.
I think the other thing too is that, so I have a morning routine of, so I get up at 4:59 every day.
5 was just too much. 5 years.
You're a badass. If you get up in the 4s, it's like, oh man, I'm badass. Right. So just for that reason alone, you can say I was up in the 4s. 59 seconds before
when everyone's
5,
going around the lunch table, hey, when did you get up? 4:59. You trump everyone.
Exactly. So with that practice, so it's I'll do a couple things. I'll get up, I'll read something inspirational. I'll journal. I will pray, meditate, work out, and then that kind of sit in my hot tub typically, and then that sort of sets the day, and that's all happened by say 7 a.m.
So hot tub's in the backyard.
Hot tub.
So you're going out first thing in the morning.
You got it. After workout, I'll go.
What kind of workout?
Depends. I sat on the bike, indoor trainer this morning.
Cool.
Went to CrossFit yesterday, so I'm so super sore.
Like a CrossFit gym next to you?
CrossFit gym, yeah. And I'm also a marathoner, so I'll do some running. It depends. Sometimes I'm training for something, and sometimes I'm not. So I'll just sort of go through those things. And
then, Brad, how old are you?
49.
So at 49, doing all this physical activity, your body's holding up okay?
Good, actually, yeah. No knee issues, no. I think the strength training is really important. You guys are, very into strength training. I think it's why I've mixed in the CrossFit piece and trying to add that and make sure, I'm lifting heavy. I got a buddy who basically, no matter what's going on in your life, he's like, the solution, lift heavy.
That's Nick. Sounds like Nick. Him and Nick would get along perfectly.
Exactly. So, so I'm trying to, and I think the strength piece, I think when I was marathoning way back and I was really just running, no core, no strength. Yeah, my body was sort of breaking down, but I think I pivoted into, cycling is way less impact. Playing hockey is low impact. I'll play hockey once a week in the winter, it's low impact. And then CrossFit, I can't go to CrossFit too much, but I'll go to CrossFit like 2-3 days a week.
Sure.
And that's just the really
And you can
nice.
scale it to what's right for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I think and we were on
just the process in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So you're working out, you do the hot tub, you meditate. Is there a meditation app you use, or just do you sit quietly for a little bit? Yeah. And is that considered praying as well? Is that at the same time?
Same time. Yeah. I would call it prayer meditation.
So you're just being grateful, trying to be quiet. Exactly.
Yeah. And maybe praying for people that I know are going through things, or, whatever. And I think, and this connects back to the writing, and I think it kind of connects to, I would say, kind of the overriding thing in my life, which is, my writing is called Bigger Things, and it's about, pursuing and doing bigger things and pursuing the bigger calling on our lives. And, and different, Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist calls that, living out your personal legend, like seeking out and understanding and then living out your personal legend. So I think to do that, we need to spend time, we need to have this quiet time. You need to have, I have they're now 17. I have twin 17-year-old boys, right? Busy lives, busy business, busy everything. And so it's like, if you're not spending any time to meditate, reflect, journal, etc., you're really missing, you're missing so much kind of revelation and insight in terms of like your bigger calling, your bigger things, your, you know, kind of what you're supposed to be doing in life. And so, so that's
because those revelations come to you when you're journaling.
Yeah, I think through that practice. I mean, they're probably not coming to you when you're like, you know, racing around and you know, everything's on fire and you're dealing with crises all day. I mean, they're really not coming to you then, but they are coming to you. They can come to you many times. They could come to you whenever, I suppose. But having a practice like that and then journaling through stuff, it's like
the best.
You're gaining so much insight. And so I think in terms of like being ready to write, you know, if we go back to that, frankly, being ready for anything in our lives, but being ready to write and to write something that is truly genuine and from our heart and, you know, from us, from our soul, from our spirit. It's like to set up that way and then write. I would say that's probably my process, even though I don't really per se have a formal
no,
process,
but yeah, it's informal, but that's what you're doing before you sit down and write. So for those people just getting to meet you for the first time, can you tell us just a little bit about Brad Pickering? Who are you? What do you want to share about yourself? I find that a hard question. I think you go through I was recently, I'm going to let you answer, by the way, but I was recently on a podcast and I didn't even want to talk about like co-founder, rock star, real estate, and the kind of like the form. It's like, I don't know. It's just, my name's Tom and I do some shit. And that's what that's all I wanted to talk about. That's who I am. So I've had this weird change. When you're younger, it was like all about my corporate title.
Yeah.
You know, like I think my first title was associate technical analyst at Oracle. And I'm like, one day I'll be able to be a technical analyst. They'll drop the associate, you know, and then I can be a senior. And it was just all about this label that some external body was giving to myself that I had assigned some importance to it. And now it's like, I've gone the total opposite. It's like, you can't fucking define me. Don't tell me who I am, you know, fuck off. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's like totally like weird. I've done a whole 180. But so today at the age of 49 years old, what do you want people to know about you?
So I'm a father of these 17-year-old twin boys who are awesome. I have an amazing marriage, 21-year marriage to Candace. Yeah. And you know, and then I would say like, because I'm an entrepreneur, my business and my life are very connected, and it's hard to, they're you know, kind of one and the same, right? All things are one. And so I do a couple of things. So I have I'm a professional engineer did an MBA along the way. Worked in kind
of rolled your eyes there when you said MBA, by the way. Did you pick up on that?
Did I do that?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe you didn't.
To all my professors, I apologize. Entrepreneur. And really today it boils down to, I am a partner in a risk and insurance consulting firm. But I also spend a lot of time and focus on our real estate and our real estate, portfolio and kind of where we're going next. We're actually working on our latest project there, and then there's another super exciting, you know, thing in the wings. So we're working on that. Bitcoin's a huge part of my life and focus. So I suppose you call me a Bitcoin maxi, and though I am still a real estate guy, and I like the kind of the combination of both. And then I guess the last thing is I'm just starting to think about, I guess I would call it venture capital, but basically, and what I mean by that is how do I use, my coaching, my consulting, my network, and my resources to help other people other entrepreneurs, other people, that I kind of see as world changers, people that I think are awesome people that, you know what, if they just had a little more capital or a little more coaching, a little more whatever, could really thrive. So I'm spending my time across those 4 areas.
You've been busy. You've been busy and you're still busy. Yeah, I guess it's interesting. You've said so much there that's, I guess, interesting. When you were going through this entrepreneurial journey, do you look back and wish you did that sooner? Is it something that you're going to keep doing? Are you now exiting out of that and going to focus on some investing exclusively? Mm-hmm. Where are you on that journey? That's some personal stuff that I don't know. Maybe you don't even have to share it, but I'm just curious. Most entrepreneurs go through this journey where they're like heads down building the business, and then they burn out. And then they're reborn in some capacity.
Then they go bankrupt. Then they do it again.
Yeah. Then they're usually reborn and recommitted in some capacity, either to that business or some other purpose that kind of gives them a higher purpose. And then they choose to kind of like either exit or like pass on the business. That's kind of what I'm seeing at people my age anyway. Yeah,
it's such a good question. I think also the stage I'm at, I would call kind of halftime. You know, if being 50 and 25 plus years into a career, and these businesses, it's like kind of at this halftime moment. And frankly, we kind of get to decide, you know, what does it look like after this point, right? And so...
and no one really prepares you for that. Like, you made it to this point. Just listening to you, it sounds like you've done pretty well for yourself. And now you have options. And I don't think anyone really prepares any of us for... like that period in your life. You got to kind of figure this out yourself.
Yeah. And I think, I think the challenge with the options is that I think I can tend to have a mistaken belief about, you know, like, I just want comfort and ease, right? Like, I'm just going to like, okay.
I don't think you're alone in that.
It's like, okay, that was hard, right? Head down, was grinding for a long time. And it's like, hey, I'm just going to check out here. I'm going to, you know, check out, go play some golf, go do whatever. But I think it's, yes, a little bit of that is good. And I think for me anyway, I think a little bit of that is healthy. But I just know that, you know, I'm called to bigger things, that there's more there. And so, for me in particular, and I would say even observing other people who reach a stage where they can, you know, retire or whatever, and that's okay for some people. But there's a lot of people that I see do that it's quite unfulfilling for them. They're bored out of their minds, you know. And so I think, you know, we reach this point of pinnacle of network experience, resources, and so on. It's like we're at this moment where, man, I can really go have even more impact, right? I could really go do way more. And it's like, and at that exact moment, and we just want to check out in a way, right? And so I think, I just think I know enough. And I think I'm coached, I'm coached by you and Nick. I'm coached by some other guys. And I think, you know, through all I've read and whatever, it's just like, no, I think that, you know, keep pressing and keep doing the dream, keep pursuing that is the right way to go. So I think the entrepreneurial journey started in 2009, and I think it started at the right time. For me, I think the skills I developed from having a corporate career for 10 plus years was the right skill set then to be able to parlay it into doing what I did. And then but I think from here it just becomes almost like more fun and more exciting in terms of what I get to
you get to choose.
You get to choose and do more fun projects or more exciting projects. There's less like, if I don't do this, the twins don't eat this week, right? It's like, okay, no, there's more choice and that. So
when did you decide to get into real estate and why?
So we started thinking about, I guess I don't really remember why, but we got into real estate in 2006-07. I guess we were doing
great time to get in.
Well, except we didn't really. So we started to. We were doing Real Estate Investor Network, Don R. Campbell stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And I lived and worked in Mexico for 4 years with my family. Candace moved there and my boys were born there. I always forget that. Yeah. And so we were living out of the country and, but we were like, hey, we really want to do this real estate thing. And so Candace flew home. It was 2007. And January 2007, she flew home and we both went to University of Waterloo. We were going to buy student housing there. And she did a bit of a housing trip. And at the end, and we had one deal, then the deal fell through last minute. Our lawyer said, no, don't do this for a couple of reasons. And then she flew home and then she got pregnant shortly after. And then the kids were born in 2007. So that sort of put out, the dream at that point.
The dream of being a landlord.
Yeah.
Put that on hold.
So, and then though I did rent my house when I moved to Mexico, we rented our house.
Oh.
And so we did have that. And then I think in 2010, maybe we ended up selling the rental. And I would say the primary reason I sold it was because I didn't do the math right. I didn't understand that the house was just going to go up by the amount of the money printing, which which is
it's all clear to us now. No one really articulated it that clearly back then.
Exactly. We didn't. So I didn't understand that. So I was doing the math wrong, or not.
Yeah, you're a typical engineer. You had your spreadsheet. You were punching in your numbers.
Like,
Totally.
This doesn't work. I'm just gonna. So we ended up selling that place, and then kind of moved on. I took a month off in 2017 and traveled out east, and with family. It was amazing, and we were in PEI at a little resort there, and I remember I was sitting at the pool reading Don R. Campbell's book,
cool.
whatever it was called, and I remember reading that, and I said to Candace, I said, when we go home, we need to do this real estate thing, and so starting then. We moved home, or didn't move, we were just on a trip, but we got home, and we bought and split 5 houses in 15 months.
What do you mean split?
So we created legal second splits.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but went through that process. So buy,
went all
split,
in.
Refinance, do it again, and we did 5 of those in 15 months, and then we bought another place. And did another split, I guess, in 2020. So that was.
And did that real estate work out according to plan? Like whatever your goals were from getting those properties and changing them to legal second suites, did that satisfy you? Like, did it accomplish what you wanted to accomplish?
Yes. So they worked out well. They've performed well.
You're hesitating. Say what you want to say.
No, I just say our strategy was buy awesome assets in awesome places for awesome people, and we own, like, our portfolio. The places that we own are fantastic. Now, are there a lot of problems? Are there problems? Yes. Like, you joke about Nick, like Nick's the waterproofing king, right?
Yeah.
So
he still has. For anyone listening, he has never bought a property that doesn't leak, including brand new construction. And even condos, like literally everything he's purchased has leaked.
Yeah. I think I'm only half. I think I have had to waterproof half the houses.
You two can get together and share stories.
Yeah. So it's not without its challenges, but it's still a fantastic investment, and still performs really well. And frankly, there's a real need, obviously, for housing. We were splitting places and creating additional units and so on. So I think, it was a good strategy, and it played out how we wanted. And I think, and if we go to Bitcoin, I think
before we transition to Bitcoin, what do you to survive real estate the way you did and change those into legal second suites and do all that stuff? Is there something that you were just good at that allowed you to survive all that? Like, you're dealing with banks and lawyers and tenants and contractors. It's like probably credit lines to access capital and tracking to pay back credit lines after you've like built out a property. I'm just guessing, but like all this wild stuff. Looking back, is there something that you're like, okay, we just kind of nailed that? And is there something that you're like, oh, we kind of messed that up? And if nothing comes to mind, it's fine. I'm just curious.
No, I think a couple of things. I would say, number one, my wife Candace, that we'll joke. I'll refer to her as our secret weapon. So she's
organized.
She has an MBA in finance. So the whole banking side, she worked in commercial lending. The banking side,
a secret weapon.
Like, my banking binder is better than everybody else's banking binder.
Sounds like it. My banking binder is crumpled pieces of paper that I go in. Will you lend me money? Here are some documents.
We're going through. We're in the process of buying another place right now, and literally, so. The bank or the broker will be asking for documents, and she'll just be like, she's just like so proud too. She's like,
yes.
That was like,
can I get your 2022 tax return, please?
Yeah. That really helped. That being organized. I think the other two things I would say is, one, we hired the right realtor. So we hired a realtor who specializes and only does investment property.
Cool.
So that's key, and not just, using whoever, but using people who specialize in it, because actually a friend of mine in Ottawa just reached out yesterday and said, hey, our son is thinking about, buying a place. It's going to be hard to carry. He's thinking about buying a duplex. Do you have any advice? And my advice is use the right realtor. And I think the other thing too is, like, people have already figured this out. So, I think it's one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given. And I think Brian Tracy or someone said this, like, if you want something in life, figure out somebody who's already done it and just like do what they did. And so, in this particular case, it's like, follow someone's system on how to do this. Like, lots of people have, done that. So whether, and I get coached by Rockstar, right? And I followed you guys for ages. And it's like, you guys know how to do this. There's people here, there's coaching, there's classes. It's like, just do it. Like, do what you guys lay out. And it's actually not that hard. The barrier to entry now is to doing that, I don't think is that hard. Capital, I suppose, is the barrier, but in terms of how to actually functionally do it is actually not that hard.
It's weird. Over the next 10 years and 15 years, I think real estate investing is going to separate itself, where it was so easy before that really there's going to be, it's going to become a specialized niche of entrepreneur or investor, because it is getting more competitive, and the days of buying a condo and, it's going to go up and rip, I think those days they might come back in brief moments, but over time, I think this whole game's elevating. Totally. And, the skill set that you require is going to change. So surrounding yourself around the people, it doesn't mean everyone can still do it. It just means the days of, like, you close your eyes and buy any property and it's going to cash flow. Totally. They have sailed away. Yeah. So now it's just going to get, like every business as it changes and matures further. In this Toronto market, you're going to require a bit more skill, but that's impressive, man, that you dove right in and did that. And then, so I can't remember exactly when you popped up on my radar. I feel like during the pandemic, I think we were doing so many of those Zooms that I was going insane. And I feel like I saw your name and we started talking about Bitcoin, and you might have asked a question around that. I feel like that's when we really first started crossing paths. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it was October 2020.
It was. Oh, okay.
That was the first time I attended the big event.
Okay. So we would have done that online. Yeah. We went and tried to do these big events where we had hundreds of people. We did it on a big Zoom. It was ridiculous, but we tried. Yeah.
And then immediately after, I would have stared following up directly with you guys.
Okay. Got it.
So it was all fall of 2020.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Oh, great time. Yeah. And that was when, you then tripped down the Bitcoin rabbit hole because you started hearing a bunch of people talk about it. So
not a bunch of people. It was you, Tom.
Oh, really? So, okay. I think you've said that before, and I kind of forget.
No, it was entirely. Obviously we had all kind of heard about it prior to 2020, but it was really it. And that event, and you did a whole, a segment, like an hour segment just on Bitcoin. And
did we back then? I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm going to point to this stuff. See, I've been talking about it back in 2020.
You were exactly. And the price was like $15K or something. Yeah. Right. So, and the one recommendation you said is, hey, you need to read the Bitcoin Standard, and the first.
Yeah, I remember that now. I remember that. Yeah, right? Yeah.
So, and following that, then I bought a copy of the Bitcoin Standard, and it was like the following weekend, my wife and I were going on an anniversary trip to Prince Edward County, and but I brought the Bitcoin Standard with me. Oh, shit. And so I know, you know where this story's about to go, right? So the marriage almost didn't make it through that period. It was a little rocky, but so I literally just
lost your mind.
Just read the book all weekend. It was just like, no, I need to read this. So, just like digested it in that weekend. And I think a couple of things in my background helped me to digest that and kind of right away understand. So, and I think that was, number one, being a real estate investor, and also following all of your, teachings on like the money printing and what that's doing to asset prices and so on. So, like none
of us are geniuses. We just happen to be buying assets that are more scarce than the Canadian dollar. It's it's not rocket science.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think that allowed me to, understand that piece of it. Okay. You need scarcity. You need some sort of scarcity. Okay. This looks like scarcity, but let me think about it further. And back when I went to University of Waterloo back in the late 90s, which was the tech bubble, and I know you had a tech background.
Lived through it,
And
saw all the people from Oracle getting laid off during the tech crash. Like literally, my desk was looking out to the parking lot, and I just saw streams of people, maybe 50 feet apart, just walking into the parking lot, like you would see in the movies, with a cardboard box with their stuff from their desk. It was just bad times because like 18 months before, it was like the tech boom.
That's right.
Everybody was hiring. Oracle was hiring just, I don't know, in the Mississauga office, just like new people every day, it seemed like. And then boom, the whole thing blows, and people are walking out the door as fast as they walked in.
Yeah, well, you just described like, my experience and my net worth and everything else, right? I was
totally.
I'm so
my
rich.
God, my Oracle, I'll never forget my Oracle shares. I guess I was in my 20s, and they, at one point, I guess I logged into whatever I was using, and it said $80,000. And Brad, let me tell you, at that moment, I thought I go, I guess we're going to be rich. Like, I guess that's it. Like, we were buying a 4-bedroom house in Mississauga at that time for like $268,000. So to see 80,000, I was like, I don't know. I guess that's it. Like, we got it all figured out. And then it went from 80 to 75 to 70 to 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. And I don't know where it settled, 11K or something like that.
And my lesson through all of that was... So I bought, we were all trading these. It was like the meme stocks back then, right? It was, and so I bought Amazon in 97.
No.
Like just following the IPO.
Oh, shit.
Oh yeah. I have old Scotia statements.
No way.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I try not to do the math. So owned that, rode research in motion, went from $5 to $260. $5 to $260.
Is that what it went to?
Yeah, it was insane.
Shit.
So made tons of money, lost tons of money, but the real benefit of that experience was now I can look back and I realize, okay, virtually everything that I was trading turned out to be, useless, a scam, a company that had no value and whatever. Though, look at Amazon, right?
There was some stuff in there.
In there, exactly. So the world was changing, right? The internet changed the world, and these types of businesses changed the world. But where we thought they were all changing the world is like, no. 19 of the 20 that I owned were garbage, but one was the gem. And so, reading the Bitcoin Standard, starting to understand Bitcoin, as it turns out, the dominant network, it's like Metcalfe's law, right? The dominant network in anything, it becomes the outsized winner. So once you have, so the dominant network in friends is Facebook, the dominant network in mobile is Apple, the dominant network in retail is Amazon, the dominant network in information is Google. And so, and I was like, oh my goodness, Bitcoin is more than 50% of the whole crypto space and is fully decentralized, not controlled by anyone. There's no foundation and scam rug pull to it. It's like, so, but I could see in the confusion of the crypto, I'm like, oh, this is 99 all over.
Totally.
And so I was able to go, oh my goodness, and this is Amazon. And so I think
back then in the 90s, I was in tech support. And when I was in tech support, they divided us up into different kind of groups. Like you were part of the Windows team or the Unix team. But underneath that, there was the protocols that you were kind of responsible for. And I remember that like basically all of us supported, this is going to sound ridiculous and some people won't even know the acronym or whatever, but it was like, most people were supporting operating systems running on TCP/IP. But there was a couple of guys that fascinated me because they were like over the cubicle wall for me. And one guy, French guy, I remember his name is Mark, and I'm like, Mark, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'm hearing you kind of over the wall here. And he's like, oh, there's this thing called NetWare. And this is like a network protocol that's way better than TCP/IP. And he went on like this kind of beautiful rant and explaining why it was like so much better than TCP/IP. And I remember telling him, I'm like, well, I don't think anybody uses it. And he's like, oh, but people should use it for this reason, that reason. I'm so passionate about it. And it was like one guy. And there was like another guy that was supporting, Apple had a networking protocol, if I remember properly. And it was his own networking protocol. And there was like one guy that supported that. And this guy, Mark, did that on the side too. And that was it. Like everybody else was running operating systems on this one communication protocol called TCP/IP. And then there was layers on top of it, like HTTP and HTTPS, and there's all this kind of stuff. So just like you're saying, that gave me all flashbacks to Bitcoin because I thought, oh my gosh, just like you articulated there, like Bitcoin is this there is a digital scarce asset to it, but it's also a network, which I didn't understand at first. I didn't understand that all these little nodes are connected around the world and they're all communicating with each other. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I've seen protocols before. And protocols, when they're unleashed, they're like black holes, and there's one dominant winner that just sucks in all the value. And if TCP/IP was the communication one, am I staring at the monetary one? And if we if we happen to be, I'm going to go all in on this trend here. Yeah. And then you just spend the next 18 months or 4 years of your life trying to disprove your thesis. You're like, where am I wrong? And you're listening to everyone. And the more you listen, some of the smartest people you listen to end up confirming all your biases. Yeah. And no one else really has a good argument against it. And it just kind of like sucks you further into that black hole yourself. Yeah. So it sounds like, that tech experience you had, it gives you such beautiful pattern recognition because you can see these things. Yeah. And that's really, my tech days really helped me see that. And then my database days helped me see, because when I first bought Bitcoin, I picked up a bit of Ethereum. And the reason I picked up a bit of Ethereum, I just couldn't understand it. I go, I guess I don't understand any of this. And I must be missing it. And I bought some. And then as I kind of read into it more and more, in the tech world, you read white papers of all these different technical things. And when you read about Ethereum, I remember reading, and none of it made sense. I just didn't understand what problem it solved. I didn't understand the architecture of it. I didn't understand really anything. And it freaked me out, and I sold it because I'm like, this reminds me of all the mistakes I've made in the past. I'm out. This doesn't make any sense to me. And to me, it was the best decision ever just to be a Bitcoin maxi, and that's it. Totally. Yeah. So that's interesting that your tech experience helped you gain some clarity around this. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So with that, I went from kind of 0 to 100 like that. Cool. By Christmas, every non-real estate dollar I had was in Bitcoin. And when I say every, people are like, yeah, but what about your RSP? I'm like, 100%. What about your RESP? I'm like, 100%. Well, what about your I'm like, no, literally everything. 100%. Yeah. So. It's the hardest thing to figure out because it's kind of like for most people we talked about this before recording a little bit, like you're trying to analyze investments and the cash flow and the income to the expenses, or Bitcoin is really just, to me, the purest expression of money that I've ever seen in my life. And there's nothing to it. Like once you understand the characteristics of what make money good money, and then you stumble into something that is money, you realize there's no more to figure out. Like it's not actually risky. Right. You just own the good money or the best money that is in the world today. Yeah. And that's it. The risk is in fact owning everything and anything else. That's right. And once you get to that point, everything looks crazy to you. Yeah. You're the crazy Bitcoin maxi and everything else looks insane. But to the Bitcoin maxi, you're looking at like, you're insane. What are you doing? My father-in-law, he said to me about a month ago, he goes, okay, so Bitcoin just hit 70,000 US, just hit 70,000. He's like, when do you exit? Yeah. Totally. I said, Don, Bitcoin is the exit. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Brad, you're all in. You're all in, Brad. If you're answering that way, you're all in. But it's a lot of people, they get all caught up in the risk of it, and it is super volatile. I understand, of course, but it's like, well, what are you doing? Well, cash. We have the. It's like, no. Those are defined risks. I'm like, just look at look at M2. I mean, let's pull up the chart. What's the interest expense on that? I'm like, that's real risk. Like they're, but nobody, I think people are just so busy living. Yeah, agreed. You know what I mean? Agreed. Trying to get kids to soccer, like not their fault. Yeah, and totally. School and pay. We're not trained. No one talks about it. So it is hard. People are so overwhelmed to begin with. And then it's like, oh, hey, do 100 hours of study, read, right? And so, listen to Michael Saylor explain how Manhattan is granite and Bitcoin is like the granite underneath Manhattan for like 100 hours. And then you'll be good, Yeah, it is a tough one. It's funny though, because the volatility, if it's $1 trillion asset right now, which is roughly about that number, and then you have like 300 trillion globally in real estate and like 400 trillion or whatever it is in bonds. And if some of those two things, and I don't know, 100 trillion in equities or whatever it is, and bits and pieces of that are leaking out into a $1 trillion asset, it's just naturally going to be volatile because it's so tiny and the rest of everything is so massive.
Yeah.
You know, gold is what, 10 trillion. So like if bits and pieces of these different big asset classes leak into something that's $1 trillion, it can spike it up and spike it down so hard and so fast, it catches people by surprise. But this is just the maturation of something that is coming into its own, and it's going to take some time. And the volatility, once you understand it, it's to your benefit. Like, I think the biggest thing that really changed my way of, or confidence in explaining it to like traditional finance people, is the last 4 years, everybody knows it's volatile. Like it went from 10K to like 67K or whatever it was. And then it went all the way down to whatever, I don't know.
16, 17.
It went to 30 or something. And then it went back to 60 something. And then it went to 16K. But so everybody knows that. But if you ask those people, hey, what was the compound annual growth of Bitcoin over the last 4 years annualized? Like what was the number every year compounded? And right now it's about 51% or so. Compounded a year over through that volatility. So it's like, who cares about the volatility if the last 4 years of that volatility is returning 51% compounded annually?
Yeah.
Get me some of that.
Totally.
And I can understand like why people get so confused by it. So now that you've kind of done this exploration, was the Bitcoin Standard kind of like that was the thing that changed your understanding? That was the book? And then was there other resources after?
Yeah, so
just like podcasts? Is that it?
Yeah, I think. Well, so that book for sure. The other thing that really crystallized it for me was Michael Saylor. I think he started buying in August. I think it was August.
Summer of 2020.
Yeah, summer 2020. And so for me, I was like, okay, so we have a NASDAQ public company who is now like buying and custodying this asset. And because I deal with like a lot of large institutions, SEC regulated institutions, I'm like, and I deal with a lot of their lawyers. That would be my typical clientele, or the general counsel or whatever. I'm like, to get that through the lawyers and the investment committee and so on, I'm like, this is crazy. So I really went and did a deep dive on even Michael Saylor and that. And little known fact about Michael Saylor is he's actually an author. So he wrote a book called The Mobile Wave in 2012. And he was so passionate about and felt people were so missing, what was happening with like technology and network effects, that he took the time as the CEO and chairman of a NASDAQ company, took the time to write the book that basically said, you want to own the dominant network in anything, and laid out and put a thesis out in that book to say you need to own 5 companies: Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter. The returns on those over the decade have been like between 1,000 and 2,000%. He called the trade of the decade. It literally wrote a book on it, and I've heard him joke. He says, I made $50,000 from the book and $500 million from the investment. Mm-hmm. So, and then I started watching old Michael Saylor retro video of him.
Insane.
Of him talking.
That one where he talks about Apple or whatever. Oh my God.
So you just, and
he's so definitively calling the shot.
Right.
Like with 100% conviction in his voice.
Yeah. And so we look at how consensus, look, what's the no-brainer trade of today? By the Magnificent Seven. Okay, Michael Saylor called that trade in 2010, basically. So it's like, and now 99% of the world understands that trade. There's the alpha's gone. There's not whatever. Yeah. If you don't have any other good ideas, I guess that would be my next best idea. Sure, it's an okay idea.
Yeah.
But then you look at what he's now what he's doing with respect to Bitcoin, and then you start deep diving Bitcoin, and you're just like, and for me, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is insane. This is insane. So that, I would say that resource also really helped
crystallize things.
Holy macro, this is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. And we're so early. I just had one of my friends say, well, Tom, all the institutions are like already buying, and if Apple, I don't know how many billions of dollars in cash Apple as a corporation is sitting on.
Right.
I know it's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but they have no ability, like banks right now, like Apple can allocate to the ETF, but I guess that like, I'd assume the CFO or the CFO team at Apple, they're probably not, they maybe would get some ETF exposure, but really like if I had $100 billion in cash and I wanted that, liquid, I would, if I wanted to allocate to Bitcoin, I'm probably not going down the ETF route. I would want my bank to open a Bitcoin account where I could just hold some of that in Bitcoin, very liquid. And right now, the banks don't have regulations to do that. No. So you have these CFOs. So when everybody's talking about, or Bitcoiners sometimes say, well, the institutions are already in, I'm like, I don't even think you understand how early we are. Yeah. The institutions aren't even close to being in. There's no regulatory framework for them to hold liquid funds on their balance sheet other than getting an ETF. And some of them, I don't think, want the ETF.
Right. Yeah. Here, well, they wanted, I mean, look, in the US, they went down that road and I can't remember the bill number, but it was Bill C-21 or something, right?
Yeah.
They wanted it. Everyone voted for it. Both sides said, yeah, go.
I forget what happened.
And then Biden vetoed it.
Oh, is that's
why?
He stepped in?
Yeah. So, but the banks absolutely want to be able to custody
Just think
Bitcoin,
of the fees. How hard is it to custody Bitcoin and charge fees on that? I mean.
So, but here's another, moment that just makes me so bullish. So I played golf up at TPC Toronto, Osprey, and my cousin and I, we got paired with just two other random guys. And the one guy, he's an Asante advisor. And after the round, we were sitting down having a quick drink, and
of course, you brought up Bitcoin.
Of course, I'm like an Asante advisor. I have to ask the question. Guy's probably 60 years old or early 60s.
Okay,
has 12 advisors that work for him. Okay. So this is a big dude. This guy's overseeing a lot of investments and a lot of money. So so I said, hey, listen, not to make the conversation awkward, but hey, what do I'd like to ask you a question about Bitcoin. And he automatic. I get the eye roll, and he starts saying, well, here's what I think about Bitcoin. And I kind of interrupted. I said, that's actually not really my question. I said, I didn't say it this way, but I don't actually care what you think about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've made my decision.
I said, here's the question. I reframed. I said, here's the question I really want to understand. So you guys have, you and then your 12 advisors, and you guys are managing tons of money for lots of people. I said, just in the last couple of years, how many times does Bitcoin come up in the conversation? Is it in the conversation? Do you guys bring it up? Do people bring it up?
Yeah.
Where's that at? And he kind of racked his brain, and he's like, I can't think of a specific example. And he said, maybe once or twice, but that's it. Not really. So
wow.
I'm like,
wow,
we are so early. And that's, I've actually been off, so I'm taking a Twitter hiatus. I've been off Twitter for about a month. Yeah, exactly. It's hard, but
it's
I'm doing
so good. The algorithm's so good.
Oh man.
Just so good at hooking Twitter. You in. It's Twitter.
So good. But just now I'm out in normie land. I'm not dealing with that 0.1% of Bitcoin maxis every day and that thinking. And it's literally nowhere in the conversation.
It's nowhere.
It's literally zero. Yeah. So, so we're just so early.
Sometimes I'll be out somewhere, I'm looking around, I'm like, everyone here needs to know about Bitcoin, but I don't think anyone does. You're just looking around. Yeah. A lot of Twitter Bitcoiners are now on Nostr, by the way. It seems like more and more are on Nostr, and Nostr doesn't capture your attention as much because the algorithm doesn't really exist to do that. So you actually get bored of it after a little while. It's how things probably should be.
Right.
You can go on Nostr for a little bit, read some stuff, and you're like, well, I guess I'm caught up, and I guess that's it. Whereas on X or Twitter, the algorithm's so good, it just keeps feeding you.
We know Tom will love this.
Yeah. And then if I share something with my brother or Mike or someone on the team, it's like, oh, he must really like that. I'll notice the next little bit is just all of whatever I just shared. I'm like, oh my God, this damn algorithm that I'm fighting. And there's something else that comes to mind when we talk about Bitcoin. We can move on to some other stuff, is that when the telcos got really, really lucky with the birth of the iPhone, because they were making so much money just on old school landlines. And then voice over AP came out. It was kind of threatening them. Do you remember when VoIP came out? When we started Rockstar, Bell was pitching us some lines, and we're like, I think we'll just get this VoIP line from, I forget, some small company in Toronto or Quebec. I forget where they were from. And we got this thing, and it was kind of decent. We had a little box that we plugged into the internet and then plugged our phone into that box. And it was great because when we moved offices, we just unplugged the box and took the phone with us, and the phone number didn't change. And it wasn't 100% perfect phone, but it was 99% good, so it worked. But then when the mobile stuff started coming out and everybody, younger people moved into a new house and they didn't get the landline. They got just the mobile phone. I remember some of my friends, and I was shocked. I was like, holy shit, you didn't get a landline? You just have your phone? They're like, yeah. And then the iPhone came out in 2007 6, 7-ish, around there, 7 or something.
Yeah.
And data got so big because you were accessing the internet now on this big screen on this mobile thing.
Yep.
That really saved their asses because they transitioned from selling these like landline things
Yep.
to data. And that transition, I'm convinced, like Bell Mobility was a tiny little spin-off of Bell. It was like, that's like the stepchild of Bell Mobility. And then Bell Mobility basically just kind of saved Bell. So I don't know all the inner workings, so I'm speaking out of my ass here a little bit, but like it's pretty obvious that like all the money went to selling data and internet connections through mobile phones, and you sold data plans and that kind of stuff. And when I look at the existing banking system, there's so many parallels. It's like, the Asante wealth manager, the older generation, is the landline guys. They don't see the mobile stuff happening. The younger generation, like Anthony, who you just spoke to, are all in on Bitcoin. So he's like the equivalent of the guy who didn't get the landline is using Bitcoin right now. And the banks are in this position, which I don't think they realize that they have to make this wild and wacky transition from making money in all the fiat ways they were making money, which were like the landline ways, into embracing Bitcoin hard and fast and soon. And they don't see the problems that are headed their way. And it's fascinating because they're in the telco spot and they don't realize they're in the telco spot. And over the next 10 years, we're going to watch this empire of banking try to survive this in the West. And I just don't think they see it coming. And I'm just standing at the sidelines going, it's like, when you see the tsunami kind of going out and then you kind of see the wave being coming in at them, you're like, you're about to get hit by this thing and you don't see it.
Well, and to your analogy and example, where that was really profound was in places like in the global south, like places like Africa or Latin America, where they skipped landlines and just went straight to cell phones. And now everybody has a cell phone. Same thing.
Exactly that.
We went. So as part of my Bitcoin journey, I went to El Salvador, right?
I know, you're hardcore.
And I know,
hardcore.
So
with the whole family, right?
Took the whole family. Yeah. They're like, why are we going here? And now it's like, oh, we loved El Salvador. They want to go back so badly. But, and the reason I went was I really wanted to just see it firsthand. Like, how's this Bitcoin experiment going? Like, right, with El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender, wanted to see how that was going. What did people actually think, and so on firsthand. So, and same thing. The people are unbanked. And they're never going to have bank accounts. They have Bitcoin wallets, and they've moved on.
On a mobile phone.
On a mobile phone. They skipped that generation, right, of banking, and they're just at the next step. Exactly the same way it played out with cell phones in all those places, right? So
like you could see it coming. You could see it. And these banks are so big and so arrogant. I think. They're like just kind of like dismissive of it. And I'm like, I don't think you see this trend is going, it's coming from other parts of the world first. You're about to be engulfed by this. When the I'm not surprised Biden vetoed that, bill or whatever, but when that's allowed, like what happens when Apple just says, you know what, we're just going to hold a bunch of our liquid cash, not in dollars. And I mean, they could actually just custody that. Like you can hold 100 billion in Bitcoin pretty easily without a bank if you wanted to.
I mean, I think they're
flip it back into a fiat when you want to spend it, when you want to buy a factory or some land or whatever.
I would also say, I do just from I would say the insights I have a little bit through what I do for work, but then also just what we see publicly, like guys like Larry Fink, BlackRock, he's like the, chief marketing officer of Bitcoin now, right? So from Bitcoin's a scam for money launderers 4 years ago to today, he's like, to protect you.
Freedom money. Didn't he say it's like freedom money?
It's crazy. So, and Larry and BlackRock are sort of the proxy of like, institutional America. So the fact that he's on board, and again, like people just don't understand this. 99% of people have no idea, but it's like, no, watch a Larry interview, understand who the guy is. He's the CEO of the world's largest asset management firm, $10 trillion under management. And it's like, he's all in, like he's all the way across. His message is amazing, right? So he'd be sitting here riffing with us on like all the reasons for Bitcoin. And so it's like, they're all headed there. And I would say even, I met with some family office guys, which basically means like families with like tons and tons of money have their own family office, right? And so I met with some family office guys in Chicago this week, and I so I asked the one guy, I said, hey, like, where's Bitcoin at in the conversation, if anywhere? And he said, it used to be kind of a question. He said, now it's simply, it's not a yes, no, it's a yes. The question is only what percentage and is it just pure Bitcoin, or is it a bit of a mix of coins or whatever? But he's like, no, we're there. So, and he was talking about an endowment that this guy's a part of, and he's going, we just changed the bylaws to allow, to your point earlier, they're not even allowed to buy this stuff. So the bylaws of the endowment, they've just changed. So now, in fact, crypto became a class, so they can start now buying and allocating to that. So big money gets it, and they're all
and if you've been in this space for 4 years or 8 years or 6, whatever, or 2, sometimes you can think like things are taking forever,
right?
But we are early, and it's happening fast.
It's happening.
I just just to go back to that tech day, we can move on. Like Amazon was Amazon was just selling books, and then it's like a few years pass, and you look up and you're like, holy shit, like I can order a toaster, a microwave, I can order socks. What happened to Amazon just being like this book reseller? And I think Amazon caught a lot of people by surprise, because under the covers they were working away. And it's like the Bitcoin is just doing the same thing with like things like Fedi coming up now. There's all these apps coming out. The evolution. I mean, right now the Aqua wallet to me is really a beautiful wallet, because you can hold Bitcoin in it. It has Lightning integrated into it. You can custody your Bitcoin and use Lightning because it's integrated in with, it's using Liquid to do that transition for you. Like a few years ago, you'd have to like figure all this stuff out yourself. Now you just get this app, and Aqua is just doing it for you all in the app. Extrapolate that forward like 4 more years. Like where exactly are we going to be? So it's fun times. Brad, we're gonna have to bring you back to talk about all of this and talk about the banking sector. You strike me as somebody who like, I'm going to put you on the spot here, like lives by principles, or you have rules that you live by. Like, is there some stuff that you just live by, whether it's allocating certain amount of time to family or writing or work or to yourself, that you try to keep true to?
For sure. So how do I sum it up? I would say, I think number one that's really important is this concept of like really figuring out and living out your personal legend. And so if it's, on my heart to write, then okay, even though I'm not a writer and it's like,
it's coming out great though. Your stuff is great.
I'm going to step into that. And I think, that would be, I would say the overriding principle is I'm going to run my own race. I'm going to keep, if I believe in the heart of the great financial crisis, 2009, this is the time with my wife that doesn't work and my 18-month-old twins. This is the perfect time to start a business. It's like, I'm going to do that despite other people. A friend of mine, his father's a CEO of a big company, and was like, Brad, this is like a really bad idea. Like I'm not sure I could think of a worse idea. Good for you. And I think the principle is that, to stay true to that, stay true to yourself, and just run your own race, and, keep pursuing that. I think the other thing is like also realizing that, and as we're pursuing that, it's like the pursuit of that, the chasing the dream is living the dream. Like it's not really and I'm going to sound like a cliche, but it's like, it's not about
cliche for a reason.
Yeah. It's not about the outcome. It's about like who you're becoming through, chasing your dreams and doing your mission and kind of really pursuing that regardless of the obstacles, the fears, the whatever that are coming up. It's like, I'm just going to keep going into that. And if I could, I'll share one other principle, and that's really like, and through that, what I'm after is a full out life. I read this morning. The top 10 richest people in the world have an aggregate of 12 divorces amongst them. Right. Wow. So, and the point being, like, wealth is, monetary wealth is not the only wealth. And so, I think like realizing that and really prioritizing. So I live by a principle. I'm going to prioritize these other things. I think I'm going to live my life realizing that, like, at the end of the day, all that, our life is going to boil down to 8 people around our hospital room bed. Right. And so it's like relationships are everything. Family's everything. And I think the challenge is, so then it's like, well, your fitness is everything, your health is everything. I could go on, right? I think we go through seasons of our life, right? And and different seasons, you have more time and energy you can put onto certain things. But I think to making sure that for all of those categories of life, you constantly, you're always kind of like touching and working on every single one of them, your health, your relationships, your business, your finances, your whatever. It's like not letting any of those go. And I don't know if it's a principle, but it's probably a practice. It's like making sure you have a framework in place for living your life in a way, like tools that actually support that, meaning like planning tools, like stuff, there's like all sorts of different things out there that kind of like, like a Franklin Covey,
7 Habits.
Yeah. Or even like they do their planner, right? You do annual goals, quarterly goals, weekly goals, all that kind of stuff. Like I think to live a full out life in all areas requires like a lot of organization, a lot of planning and so on. And so, I think spending time on that stuff, putting, and it's really down the personal development track, like, Brian Tracy's Success Mastery Academy, or, pick any of those guys, right?
Did you naturally go down all this personal development stuff?
No. So my father-in-law, I just started dating my wife, and she lives in Eastern Ontario, or they live in Eastern Ontario, and I live in Windsor. So, and I was doing these 5-hour drives back and forth. And remember you had like the cassette in the car, right? Yeah. Cassette deck. And so my father-in-law was like, I got a tape series for you. And he did tons of personal development through his life. And so he goes, I have this tape series for you.
It's like Brian Tracy?
No, it was Dan Sullivan, strategic coach.
Okay.
And now my father-in-law is a retired chiropractor. He gives me a tape series called 21st Century Agent, which it's literally like a 10-hour tape series on like becoming like about life insurance. So it's so random, right? But it was
I've listened to that kind of shit.
I know,
it's so good.
There's
it's so full of principles.
So good, yeah. And so that was kind of the first. And then I was like, hey, maybe we could like, easy on the life insurance, and maybe there's some other stuff. But I ended up coaching with Dan Sullivan, and strategic coach for 4 years, awesome program, and so on. So that, I think that sort of introduced me to that, into the whole personal development world and realm. And then I, you said you read like 250 or 300. I heard you on a pod, 300 books in that space. I probably haven't read that many, but I mean, I've read so many books in that space. I think that stuff really changes your life if you're willing to.
You realize you have to stop reading it at a certain point.
Yeah,
like
that's
that
right.
was mine. I was like, oh my gosh, like I now actually have to go do stuff. Like that's enough. I have the confidence. I know I can. Yeah. I know I can visualize things and make it happen. Let's go.
Exactly.
So yeah. Huh. And is there through that process, have you learned, like you know, an entrepreneur, you do all this kind of cool stuff, do all these physical things and marathons and stuff. Do you ever get frustrated that like, oh my gosh, like I'm just spending too much time dedicating myself to preparing for this marathon, and the time with my family suffering, or the time I'm supposed to be spending on the business is suffering? How do you reconcile that? Do you have a tool for that? Or do you just accept like, oh, during a time for prepping for the marathon, this is going to be my life and the other things will be neglected somewhat?
Like for sure, especially when my kids were younger, like if I was training for a marathon, I always felt like I should be with my family. I should be working on the business. Yeah, exactly. There was a real tension between those different areas.
Yeah. How did you deal with that?
And I think this is where like having a life framework really comes in, because if you start getting up at 4:59, your life changes. Like, you're done by 7 a.m. Maybe you have longer
time for everything.
Yeah. It really, but you have to cut out, it's like you have to curate your life. You have to go, if you're going to get up at 4:59 every day, that's going to change what you're doing in the evenings. Right. So, and how that goes. So your life ends up getting,
What did you curate out? Did you have less time for some friends, or less time to be part of a softball team, or like stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, like saying no to drinks, saying no to, some friend things for sure.
I feel like I went through a 10-year period from probably late 20s to late 30s where I just didn't see most of my old friends. And it's like, I don't regret it, because I needed that time to dedicate to building this business. And then all the other time was like to be spending with the family. And then eventually I learned I have to take care of myself. That was like the last thing. I was like, oh shit, I kind of forgot about one pretty important piece.
Yeah.
And then once things with Rockstar started rolling a bit more, I could like reintroduce some more friend time again, which has been really great over the last little while. But it didn't seem like a sacrifice at the time. It's like, no, this is what I'm choosing to do. Like, I just can't go do these things on Friday night or Saturday, or I don't have time to go golfing like half of Sunday anymore. Yeah,
like golf would be a good example. I still play 15 rounds a year, but I really don't play much. I mean, I know guys that play 50. So
yeah, like, I know people who play 250.
Yeah, exactly. So that, you know, golf is a good example of something I had to let go. But I'm like, you know, you go to the golf course, I'm typically going to drink. Yeah. And, you know, and lots of guys want to cart. So I'm getting low or no exercise. Yeah. I love the game. Actually, I love competitive golf, but anyway, it's like, I have to let that go. It's not, this isn't the season for that. So I'm going to focus on and do, other things. I just have other priorities. So
have you done that? Was it right about now? Was this year? Were you doing some bike ride through Europe? No?
That's coming up in the future. No.
Oh, no? Okay.
No, okay. Not yet.
Okay.
I've done a couple of big bike packing trips, like in my earlier life, but no. And I'm hoping in this halftime journey with where I'm at, I'm hoping to do a bit of a little sabbatical and do a bike trip across Europe. So that's one of the dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That route's going to be incredible.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Brad. Anything else that you want to be sharing before we wrap up? I appreciate you doing this, man.
You know, we talked about the real estate. We talked about the Bitcoin a lot. I think, I guess I think partly why I'm doing the bigger things writing is a lot about, as I thought about the Bitcoin space and how I can contribute. It's like, I'm not as much like I worked in tech a bit, but I'm not really a tech guy per se. It's like, what's my contribution? How do I help? Because I really think that people are, you know, our kids are getting so scammed with what's happening and with the money printing and asset prices and everything else. And so, you know, I just feel really bad. I mean, if there's people who work for wages who own no assets. Think of a single mom who has a job, no assets, a couple of kids. I mean, that is like, you know, so difficult, and frankly, it's so unfair. And so for me, Bitcoin is actually a real form of like philanthropy. I think it can really serve to help so many people. And so I think just really helping people understand the problem first and foremost. It's like, I think you have to go, well, what problem is it actually solving? And you know, the money printing, you can see the effects of it. Second order effects are obvious. And I think just people really like, just pay it. I would just encourage people to pay a bit of attention, because it's like really asking the question behind the question, like, why does meat cost this much? Why does education cost this much? Why does health cost this much? Why does everything cost this much? It's like, what's causing that, understanding that. And then, you know, I think Saylor, again, a great quote. He said something like, you know, you're going to spend 60,000 hours like of your life working to make money. Like, please spend 100 hours figuring out how to keep it. And so that's really, I think, why part of what I'm writing is about. And I think, you know, just people, digging in on that a little bit, understanding that, and you know, and then developing.
It can give you your life back. It can give you your life back.
Totally. So
like what you're saying here is so impactful to me, because sometimes I think about, like, we talk about like 7% M2 money supply debasement, and people are like, well, Tom, like, what the hell are you talking about? But just hearing you say this, it's like, well, if you exchange your time and your labor for a form of money, and then that money is printed at 7% more a year, you're losing. It's like your purchasing power of that money is being diluted. So like the time and labor you spent for that single mom who spent that money, she's losing that purchasing power. But what I never realized until recently is that Bitcoin's giving it back to you. Because if Bitcoin is growing in fiat terms and increasing your purchasing power for your daily or, you know, weekly groceries and your rent and your mortgage payment, and it's growing, and we said at the last 4 years it's a compound annual growth rate of the 50% range, I never really realized, like, holy shit, The fiat system is stealing from you at a pretty well-defined rate here.
Yep.
Probably going to increase. Bitcoin's giving it back to you. And not only is it giving you back your purchasing power, if fiat stole your time and your labor, Bitcoin's giving you back time and your labor. It's giving it back to you. You will have more time in the future because your purchasing power is going up, which means your time, the most scarce of scarce assets, is being given back to you. That to me just blows my mind.
Yeah.
So when you say this, that family, that single mom example that you brought up, if they allocate $10 a week, a month, $100 a month, $100 every 6 months, $1,000 a year, whatever it is, bit by bit, inch by inch, little by little, you're reclaiming the time in your life. Like, it's profound.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
no. So what you're saying and that's why I think some people will say, hey guys, like, why don't you shut up about this thing? Like, there's other stuff to talk about. But I think you're somebody who goes down to the base layer of the problem. Like, you're an engineer, so you're naturally just going to think like, what's the foundation of this problem? Like, what is the base of all of this? And when you boil everything down, like work, investing, free time, vacations, paying for your children's future, paying for your retirement, you just like break it all down. It all breaks down to like the money is how we measure all of these things. And then when you realize in your engineering brain, you realize like, oh my gosh, like the system that we are measuring all these important things, the most important things in our lives to us, the system, the unit of account that we're using to like track this, it's actually broken. It's being manipulated on the side with somebody pushing more in on the side without telling us. It's devaluing all our numbers. So like what we think we need to retire, we don't even know, because like I don't even know what the inflation rate is going to be in 10 years. So like, how do I plan today for my retirement in 10 years? Like, how can any financial advisor in good faith right now actually plan for retirement 10 years now? Like, well, none of us know what the inflation rate is going to be. So you got this variable that's going to destroy all your models. And then comes along this thing, Bitcoin, that is just pure and truth. And you can buy some of it. It cannot change on you, and it's the new measuring stick for all these other things in life, and it's giving you your time back. To me, it's just like, yes, this is the thing we should be all talking about all the time until everybody gets it. Like, this is the thing. Sorry, Brad, I'm just kind of going out.
No, hey, it's an awesome insight. It really is, So
I can see why you're writing about it, and it's you're thinking so highly of it the way you are. It's not much more than like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to make some money, I'm going to get rich. No, it's not about that.
That's right. These people need, today you almost need to be a hedge fund manager to figure out how to like manage your finances and invest and whatever. It's like, put all that aside. Here's a simple concept: buy Bitcoin. Period. That's it. It boils down to that. So it finally allows. In Canada, let's say for that single mom or whoever, anyone can buy that and have that, and all of a sudden they start owning an asset and having access to an asset. And it's simple. You don't have to go fix a roof. You don't have to deal with leaky basements.
No,
it's like it's simple. And then if we go to the third world, you go to all these other countries. Those people literally. We used to support a family in Zimbabwe. If I wanted to give them first of all, it was almost impossible to get the money there. And if I said, hey, I'm going to give them an extra $1,000 or something, it's like they literally had no ability to custody it. What are they going to do?
How are they going to accept it?
How are they going to accept it? Where are they going to custody it? They're going to because they literally have no personal property. And so all of a sudden it becomes such a big idea when it's like, hey, we're going to give personal property rights to 8 billion people through this thing. We could.
My dad would work hard in Canada, send money to my aunt in Croatia. My aunt would have to walk. It would probably take her, like, it's one of those stories you always hear about. I guess it would take her 3 hours or so to walk to the bank. She would get to the bank. There would be a big fee. If he sent her $500, which was a huge amount, she would lose $50 in fees. And then the guys at the bank would just take $50. And like, what's my aunt going to do? So she walks out with $400. So my dad spent $50 in fees to get it there.
Yeah.
And then she would see those people eating lunch with the money and stuff. But like, my aunt's not going to like fight these two guys.
Totally.
So she would lose $100.
Yep.
So my dad's losing, what is that? 20%, just right off the top to get to my aunt. So my dad paid tax, worked here, exchanges time and labor here, pays taxes on that money, sends it over there. The net amount he was able to send after paying taxes on that money is then lost another 20%. My aunt has to walk to the bank, go there, know that she's going to get ripped off, walk back, and then try to like hide that money. My other aunt stored rebar in a communist country at the time called Yugoslavia. She would take a rebar in the fall, squirrel it away, because she would know the construction workers in the spring would need little bits of metal, and back then she could sell it back to them in the spring.
Right.
And that's how she would prepare, like try to like make some money, hustling like that. She exchanged dinars for Europe, for German marks. The communist government there catches her doing that. Not allowed, because, you know, they want you to use their currency.
Yep.
She goes to jail for 4 months. My dad buys a newspaper in Mississauga, Bloor and Fieldgate Road at the convenience store, pulls out the Croatian newspaper, discovers through reading the newspaper his sister is in jail.
Wow.
Like, that's how he discovered my aunt was in jail for doing that. All she was trying to do was protect purchasing power. Now, she was the hustler in the middle trying to make a fee on doing this. But like, that's how people, like, that was a second order effect of the system that they were in.
Yeah.
My father went to jail in that country for singing an incorrect song. You know, we talk about today, free speech is right out there. And some of the tendencies I see, and people are like, well, you can't say this, you can't say that. I'm like, this is a slippery slope. My own father went to jail for singing a song that somebody decided you couldn't sing.
Right.
He was thrown in jail for 2 weeks for singing a song. So like, you look back at all this, and then going to what you said, where we can kind of send this stuff globally, where people can have property rights, and then the independence and freedom that it gives them. It's just like, it's absolutely, to me, it's just stunning that we're alive at this point in history.
Yeah.
Brad, it's the best time ever.
No, you know, it really is. And actually, I wrote in one of my articles was, you know, optimism is a superpower. I really am excited about the future. And I think because I'm a Bitcoiner, and because I see the world through the lens I see it, I mean, I'm super excited actually for that there is, first of all, that there is a bridge. There is a way out of the existing system. And I think it's a, you know, Corey from Swan line, something like trying to help win the race to avoid the war. Right. And so, you know, my contribution is trying to, you know, I'm basically trying to educate as many people as I can, orange pill as many people as I can, to help people get across that bridge and, you know, win the race to avoid the war. Because if you just do the math on M2 in the US, you know, and where that's like where monetary expansion and printing is going and whatever, it just like, it doesn't end well.
Wait, when we started the Rockstar Economic Update, the U.S. total debt was $8 trillion.
Yeah.
8
in 2000.
And I remember, it was like 2008, 2009 was one of our first. And I remember saying, well, at this growth rate, you know, when you're doing the calculations, and it was a period where not all of this was shared. So like, I felt like I was just alone with Nick. I'm like, Nick, you know, if it grows like this, like by the year, like 2016, it's actually going to like double. And both of us were like, no, like we must be wrong. Yeah. Like, it took all of history to get it to 8 trillion. It's going to double in the next like few years. No.
Right.
And now we're sitting at 35 trillion. Yeah. It's 35 trillion, 282 billion or whatever it is. It's just absolutely bonkers. So,
you know, and people, it's just, so $35 trillion, that does not include the
off balance
sheet liabilities, which are like order of magnitude
trillion or whatever.
That's just like the straight up liabilities. And and it's just simple math. It's probably because I'm an engineer. It's just like, it sounds like, you know, it's a Greg Foss line, right? It's just math. But like 3% or 4% of 35 trillion, that's $1 trillion. So it's like, where can the $1 trillion possibly come from? They're not going to cut entitlements. That's not happening. They're not going to cut military spending. That's not happening. They're going to print it, period. So
this next wave of printing is going to be jaw dropping.
Yeah. So, you know, and so knowing what that's all the second order effects that are, it's going to be crazy. People are going to get,
and then you can see the second order effects. You can see how populism goes, and you can see where people are like pointing fingers at each other and tax this person more. And we should tax unrealized gains, and we should have this tax and that tax. And it's like, everybody's fighting this thing where like the base problem is not being discussed. Like, it is like peeking behind the Wizard of Oz curtain and going, oh my gosh, like, why doesn't everybody see this? You know? Where can people find you on Substack? What would they search? What was the name of it? Remind me.
So the name is Bigger Things.
So Bigger Things. So if you go to Substack and search for Bigger Things, you will find your newsletter.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then you're taking a Twitter break right now, but if somebody wanted to find you, do you want to share that or no?
I never post on it.
You never post. Do you share on anything on Nostr? No. Okay. So you're lurking around, but the way to find Brad Pickering is on search Bigger Things on Substack.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else, Brad?
No, that was great. I just really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh my gosh, we've gotten to know each other over the last few years, and it's really been great. Like I really feel in this business, if we just talked about bricks and mortar real estate, it would have gotten boring for me a long time ago. Yeah. So to be able to have like a bigger purpose of talking about these subjects and then to meet people like you and kind of sit down with you like this, man, it's an honor for me. So thank you for doing this. You're a busy guy. It sounds like you were in Chicago earlier this week. God knows where you're off to next. I don't know. You'll be riding some mountain biking marathon in a hot tub somewhere in Ontario here. Thanks for taking the time. I really feel honored that you do that. So thank you, Brad.
Well, and thanks for the invite. And I would say it's just, another thing that I've learned over the years is like, who you associate with or being part of masterminding, who you're being coached by is so valuable. And, it really takes what might be a much longer timeline and just compresses it by hanging around with the right people, getting exposed to the right ideas. And honestly, I wouldn't have known about Bitcoin had I not, been a part of Rockstar, and just even I'm part of the mastermind, the Platinum Mastermind, and just the access to the ideas and just, access to yourself.
It's just all sharing.
Nick, and the sharing and just what I've learned from that has just been really invaluable. And frankly, changed my life and changed my family's life and trajectory, helped us, what did you say, gain back our time and energy by making the right investments and really a lot of those ideas, real estate and Bitcoin and how the ways that we did that, it was through the way you'd help present that to us. So I just super appreciate all that you guys.
You're too kind. You're too kind, Brad.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thanks for doing this. Thank you.
Thanks.